So I'm going to start with a question. Anyone in here have an inner critic? Anybody got a couple? A couple, right? More than one? They sort of show up with different voices, right? Maybe a little voice of doubt. Maybe it's not always a critic, but maybe it's just a doubting voice, right? That little voice that kind of goes, really? Really? You think you can do that? All right, sure. Try, but that's hard. Right? All those little voices that go on inside of us. And what are the things that trigger that voice? Basically, almost anything can, right? But the thing that triggers it, like the root of it, is that somehow we failed, or we're afraid that we're going to fail to meet our own expectations. Like on some level, we're not going to live up to the idea that we have about who we are or who we want to be. We feel flawed in some way. We feel that somehow there's something in us that isn't there, that we want to be there. There's some part of us that we're not enough of fill in the blank. Not enough beauty, not enough grace, not enough intelligence, not enough love, not enough finances, not enough abundance, not enough luck, not enough skill, not enough community, not enough family, right? The list can go on and on and on. And somehow we think it's us. I'm not enough. I am not enough. And it's our sense of worthiness that defines how we speak to ourselves. And how we speak to ourselves is also how we speak to the world. So at the very core, the very center of how we show up is this sense of our worthiness. How worthy do we truly feel? And so Brené Brown did all, see, look at me, I'm already off. Brené Brown has done all of this research, right? Decades of research where she was collecting stories from people. She was collecting their stories about how they navigated shame and hard times in their life and the good times in their life. And she collected and recorded all of this data. And her focus originally had been on vulnerability and shame. And as she was doing all this research, she started to see and realize, she calls herself a pattern hunter. And she started to realize that there was a pattern that was emerging. Because even though every single one of us has experienced shame on some level in our life, the way people navigated that shame was not always the same. And out of the stories that she was listening to, she was finding stories of courage and vulnerability and of a rising above the experience, of not having it, whatever that was, sort of hold them back and hold them down. And she sat with that and she thought, so what's the difference? These people who are somehow able to overcome whatever this hard space is in their life, what is the difference between them and the rest of the people that I've been interviewing, where they become sort of held back by these experiences? And she started listing the kinds of words and language that people used as they were describing their experience. So Amy, if you could give us this first slide. So these were the words that people who had sort of risen above, who had found a way to navigate it, these were the words that they would use to describe their life. Joy, play, gratitude, authenticity, rest, faith, intuition, hope, belonging, creativity, and spontaneity. It's a wonderful list, right? She calls it her do list, right? It's the do list. And then she sat down and she thought about what were the words that came up for people who were suffering from their experience. Amy, if you could give me the next slide. These are the words that would come up for them. Perfection, numbing, certainty, exhaustion, self-sufficiency, being cool, fitting in, judgment, scarcity, follow the rules, work hard. Now, as she looked at that, now, even energetically, how does that list make you feel? Right? I mean, I read that list and everything kind of goes, can you go back to the other list for a second, Amy? Oh, phew, right? And then we look at that list, and what is that what energetically, what are those words? How do they land on you? They open you up, right? You automatically start breathing better. Can you go back to the scary list? So she calls this the don't list, right? So the do list and the don't list. This is the don't list. And the thing that rocked her world personally was that she had been studying shame and vulnerability. She'd been working on this for decades, and she all of a sudden had this epiphany and realized that that was her list. And I look at that list and I think, I certainly have words. Does anybody here not have words on that list? Because I'm going to bow down to you. Right? So this idea for me, the perfection piece, right? Right? Wanting it to be as perfect as it possibly can be. The follow the rules. Right? There's a way to do things, and this is how we do things. So follow the rules, the unspoken rules as well as the spoken rules, right? Follow the rules. There's a reason I remember my mother saying to me, there's a reason why those rules exist. Right? And on some level she's right? There's a reason why those rules exist. The other one that really got me is the work hard, right? Work hard. How many people in here work hard? Right? Okay. And self-sufficiency. That's another one, right? Especially here in this culture. How much do we pride ourselves on our self-sufficiency? I got this. Right? I got this. Right? So this is what she said is actually the don't list. This is not how we want to live our life if we want to live from a place of wholeheartedness. So what is it about this list that all of this, basically what all of those things have in common is the idea that we don't want to stand out in some way, right? You can see it, right? That being cool, fitting in, follow rules, right? Because we're afraid that somehow the places where we aren't perfect are going to reveal themselves. That we are going to somehow show ourselves in a way that is going to make everybody around us run screaming into the night, right? Terrified at the fact that this is who you are? Oh boy. The gifts of our imperfections, which is the title of the book, are actually the place where we get to experience the other list, Amy? That. Because it is the places where we are imperfectly perfect that we get to show up and be authentic and unique and interesting. Now in Unity teachings, this idea of perfection can be a little tricky because we talk about this all the time. It's one of our principles, right? That there is this innate perfection inherent in all. That we are perfect expressions of the divine. That's a lot to try to live up to. When we take it literally in a very human way. But when we're talking about the perfection that is the divine, that is the truth of who we are, we're not talking about it in the way that everything needs to be lined up exactly so. We're talking about it in the way that we are whole. Exactly as you are right now, you are perfect. It is not something you have to strain to strive towards. It is the essential of who you are, the divine perfection. When many of you might know, I was a professional actor for many, 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 many years. And when I first started acting, I had this idea about what the character was supposed to be. I'd have this idea, and it had to be perfect. And I would get up there and I would try to act the perfection of who I thought the character was. And my acting teachers would just look at me and be like, whoa, 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 no. We want to see you. And I was like, you don't want to see me. Why would you want to see me? I'm imperfect. I'm messy. I'm not, you know. And then it took me so long to be able to realize that it was actually my, in the improv community, when you create a character out of nothing, one of the things you build into the character is what we call its foible. It's imperfection. It's the thing that constantly hooks your character up and makes it stumble over itself. And that, the foible, is the thing that makes people fall in love with you. The foible, your very imperfection, is the thing that makes people drawn to your character. Not the fact that you're perfect, not the fact that it looks exactly the way, I mean, think about how I don't know why this just came into my head, but you guys remember All in the Family with Archie Bunker? I mean, talk about some serious imperfections. And yet America loved him, right? Loved him in his imperfections. It was the imperfections that made him human, that made him accessible, that made him have some sort of resonance and meaning. So all the ways that we try to cover ourselves up from our own imperfections, all we're doing is hiding from ourselves. So why do we hide from ourselves? Brené Brown says that it's all around shame. It's all around shame. That we confuse and conflate shame and guilt. So shame is where I am bad. Guilt is I did something bad. Can you feel the difference? And what happens is we combine the two. So if we do something that we feel bad about, it's not just that we did something bad, it's that we are bad because we did this bad thing. That is shame. And shame is the space where we create and nurture and build our own sense of unworthiness. Because when we think that it's actually us that's broken, we are not actually operating from the truth and the real perfection that we are. We're never broken. We are whole, we are perfect beings, imperfectly perfect. Yes? And when we can embrace the fact that we're gonna make mistakes, when we can embrace the fact that we are never gonna get it right all the time, never, ever, 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 really, ever, okay? That aspiration somehow, that you're gonna get it right, I'm not gonna make any mistakes this time. It ain't gonna happen because that's not how we grow. It's not how we move forward. If you've got your life so mastered that you are never making a single mistake anymore, you are stagnant. Right? You're not moving forward. Because whenever we move forward, we don't know where we're going. So how do we begin to embrace the fact that it's okay to make a mistake? That it's okay to actually be imperfectly perfect. So Brené Brown says that it's 3 pieces that we need. The first one is courage. Right? Courage. We need to be brave. We need to be willing to look at ourselves. We need to be willing to face the part of ourselves that we don't want anybody else to know about. Y'all know what that is. Right? You do. The minute I say that, you know exactly what it is. The thing that you don't want people to know about you. Because you think that that means you're unlovable. Because you think that that will make you a pariah, a bad person. So whatever that place is, we have to be courageous enough that we're willing to actually look at it, to actually dance with it, not shove it in a closet somewhere and sit on it where it grows. You know, the stuff we don't pay attention to, it grows in the dark. And it gets ugly, right? It grows horns and tails and teeth. It just gets bigger and nastier the longer you don't look at it. So we have to be courageous so that we're willing to actually face ourselves. And then the next piece is that when we face ourselves, we have to meet ourselves in compassion. So we need to have courage and we need to have compassion. We need to be able to hold ourselves when we don't live up to our expectations. We have to be able to hold ourselves when we seem to be failing over and over and over again to meet the ideal that we are striving to live into. We have to be compassionate with ourselves the way we are with small children. We watch a small child try to struggle and stand and walk, and we just cheer them on. And yet when we're figuring out how to walk, how to move in our new experience, that voice rises up and says, you should know how to do this. No shoulding on yourselves. No shoulding on yourself. So we have compassion, we have courage, and one of the pieces around compassion that she talks about, which I think is huge, is she talks about what's an integral component of compassion is having boundaries. It almost feels like, what? But when you're compassionate, you're open, you're wide. And she's like, no, 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 no. When you're compassionate, you have very, very clear boundaries about what is yours to do, how can you actually show up in a way that is authentic and honest. Resentments, when we say yes to things that we really don't want to do, when we go along with something because we really don't want to, but our boundaries are messy, and we're like, oh, okay, I got dragged in. How many times have you said, I got dragged into this thing? What happens is we build up resentment. And when we're operating from resentment, all we're doing is killing our compassion. The resentment that we're feeling is actually negating any compassion that we have. And remember, everything that's happening within us is happening in the world around us. So if I'm resentful of Amy, for whatever reason, I'm just picking you randomly, then that also means that I'm resentful of me. And it all just continues to feed on itself. So boundaries is a huge piece of what it actually means to be compassionate. So that we can actually meet each other with compassion, but we don't get sucked down into the hole with that. The way I like to describe it is, if you have someone who is in a difficult place for whatever reason, and they're making a lot of demands upon you, right? How do you meet them from a place of compassion without leaving your own sense of what you have the capacity to do and to be? And that's all you get, that's all you need to do, right? You show up as fully as you can, as empathetically as you can, but you don't go down the rabbit hole. You don't climb down in there and sit down with them, and you have friends like that, right? You've done it yourself, I'm sure, right? You called up a friend and you're complaining and you're and your friend is sort of like, yeah, yes, and then all that does is build a whole lot of What we're looking for is to be met in compassion. Like, yeah, that's hard. Like, that's difficult. Like, that's challenging. But I'm going to stand on the high watch, and I'm going to throw you a ladder, and I'm going to throw you some food, and I'm going to throw you a flashlight, and I'm going to stay right here with you the whole time. But I'm not going to get down in that with you, because my boundaries are clear. Right? My boundaries are clear. So we have compassion, we have courage, and then the last one that she talks about is connection. And this is really, I think, the most important of all three of them, is the connection. So they've done studies that show that when you share an experience of shame with someone else, it transmutes and it dissipates. When you hold on to the thing that you are experiencing that is shame, it builds and it grows and it gets scary in the closet. Sharing it with someone who can meet you in the compassion place, right? Meet you in that compassionate space is a transformative, powerfully transformative process. Being seen as perfectly imperfect is one of the most healing things that we can do for each other. But we know in this teaching that we can't do for someone else what we cannot do for ourselves. So all of it first begins with us. Where are you holding on to the shame? Where have you taken something that you did that perhaps is bad? Well, let's put the judgment on it. We can put the judgment on it. But that you have transformed it into, I am bad. My very essence, somehow, the fact I did this means I'm a bad person. Shame is one of the things that all of us as humans experience. There is no human being walking around on this planet without shame unless they are a sociopath. It's true though. If you're a sociopath, you don't have shame. Like, that's, right? You don't have shame. So if you're not a sociopath, then you have shame. Look around at each other. Just look around at each other. Every single one of you is carrying shame about something. So can we love ourselves and realize we're not alone in this? We're not by ourselves in this self-sufficiency. Remember self-sufficiency? We're not alone in our experience of the things that make us uncomfortable about ourselves. The things that make us want to go, oh. So the gift of our imperfections is that they show us the place where we are being called to heal. Where we are invited to heal something within ourselves. So that we can move from that place of don't into that place of do. What Brené Brown would call wholehearted living. It's some of the most powerful work you can possibly do, to be willing to face the very thing about yourself that you feel makes you unworthy. Because it's a lie. Let me be really clear. Whatever it is that you think makes you unworthy, whatever experience you may have had in your life, whatever trauma you may have gone through, whatever choices you may have made that you regret, that you wish you had never done, none of that means that you are broken. None of that means that there is something, anything, inherently wrong with you. You are worthy of the greatest expression of yourself. And the things that you are so afraid of hiding, the things that keep you from being vulnerable, are the things that are the medicine for this community and for the world. It is the very thing that you think no one can take that this world needs. That it is the thing that is going to help heal this planet, heal each other. There's a reason why people who are struggling with alcohol addiction gather together and share their stories. There's a reason why people who have experienced whatever level of abuse or whatever level, they come together and they share their stories, because we're never alone in whatever it is we have within us that makes us think that we are not worthy. So for this week, be present to where are the don'ts showing up for you? Where are you constraining yourself and not living into the do's? Where has the shame and the blame? Because that's the other piece, right? When we have shame about something, we don't want to look at it, we start projecting it outward on the world. And we start blaming everybody else for what it is that we're feeling. Those two things go hand in hand. And we can break that cycle because we truly are whole, perfect individuals. So I'm doing a workshop after class today, and we're going to dive into some more of after service today, I'm doing a class. We're going to dive some more into the shame piece and like what that is, and we're going to talk more about the courage and the connection and the compassion and what do boundaries mean. I think that's a huge piece of what we all struggle with. When we create boundaries, we somehow feel as if we become an unfeeling person, right? If I say no to something, then I'm a bad, can you see the cycle? I said no to that, I'm a bad person. The shame right there. So having really clear boundaries that are coming from an authentic awareness of who you are, not from fear, not from like a pushing away, but coming from a very clear awareness of this is what is mine to do and this is not what is mine to do, is an incredibly powerful practice to be able to move through the world and embrace yourself. The gifts of our imperfection are about embracing the wholeness that you are, loving all of you, because you truly are lovely. Every inch of you, especially the parts of yourself that you think aren't, especially those pieces. So let's just take a moment and go within. And just allow whatever got stirred up, whatever that space within us is that we're carrying something that we don't want anybody else to know about. The space within us that somehow is saying, I'm not enough, I'll never be good enough, smart enough, tall enough, funny enough, gifted enough. And just bring that space into your consciousness, nothing more. Just allow it to be present in this room right now. And breathe into it just a little bit more fully. And we're just going to hold that space that has forgotten, that has bought into a whole pack of lies, that somehow at the most fundamental level has just forgotten the perfection that we are, in our imperfection. And we're just going to bless it. We're going to bless that space within us, that misguided, misunderstood awareness of who we are. And we just love it. Just meet it in love. Nothing is more powerful than love. Nothing. No shame. No disappointment. Nothing is more powerful than the healing presence of love. And just set an intention for yourself that you're going to find some way to share this with someone. That you're going to allow it to have a voice, and you're going to allow it to be met by someone who can hold it for you. So you're going to select that person very carefully, but that you're setting an intention that you will find someone to share that shame with, so that you can truly be free. And so we bless it all. We know that it is good. We know that we are good, for we are the living embodiment of the living God. Everything we need, we have. The wholeness that we are is present right now as our very life. And this is a yes to reveal more and never less than our perfect imperfection. And so it is. Amen.